Born on 11/9/70, it is 10:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, November 16th, 2016, and this is the second video I'm doing today because I just thought of something and I thought I would share this with those that cared. And as always, I thank you for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And as you could see by the title of this video, consequences of the Democrats' actions with their rioting and protesting, and why we pretty much want to have them keep it up. It's almost the case of that scenario of forgive them for they know not what they do. And this is one of the things I talk about, how people should base things on their ability to think, process, reason, before they just react. And what we're seeing here is nothing more than emotional responses where people are not thinking about the consequences. And like I've said to so many people in past videos, when you process information and you think logically, you tend to put yourself in a better position because you'll think about the consequences of what you do and what you don't do. When people are basing whatever they're doing on emotions, and I've had this, I mean, a prime example, and I've used this many times. Back in 2012, I almost wanted to have a fight with a fellow YouTuber. I'm not going to get into the details. I've done it 500 different times. But the point is, I let the emotion of what that person was doing get to me to the point where instead of thinking logically, emotionally, I took over and almost made a very big mistake. And I learned from that. That's why I've never been in that situation ever since. So if I could teach anything and instill this in people that come to my channel, that here for the right reasons, is to think about consequences of not just what you're doing at the moment, but how it can affect your future. And this is what probably the majority of the protesters all around the country have not done. Because if you think about this, and it's almost like us that wanted somebody like Trump or even anybody else other than the establishment to try and change things, even though a lot of us know that one person cannot change it. But I can understand that majority of people don't know what we know, so they're just thinking in the point of we need something different. So the intention there is good. The reason that I think those kind of people would actually want these protests to continue. Now, obviously, we don't really want the riots because that damages public property. It hurts the economy. There was a father of a 4-year-old woman, supposedly, that was killed as a direct response of the rioters and the protesters. Not because they killed him, but because they were stopping traffic and supposedly an ambulance couldn't get to the hospital because the traffic was blocked and the person died. Now, I cannot confirm that. I've heard it from a couple of different places, so I'm not going to say that's definite, but we don't want things like that. But we don't mind these protests and these riots because what is it doing to the left side? What is it doing to the Democratic Party? It is going to leave such an emotional scar that 4 years from now, people are going to remember this, and it will definitely be brought up, and that could really hurt the Democratic Party and the people on the left. And the next time, they're not going to have the media be able to control things the way they tried to do this time, and all of the, not all, but the majority of Hollywood and the liberals trying to tell everybody what to do. So in a way, I don't have, and you shouldn't have a problem with these rioters. Now, obviously, for the greater good, we would want them to stop and actually find a way we can all work together because, like I've said before, united we stand, divided we fall. But if they're going to continue to be children, if they're going to continue to be selfish, if they're going to continually base things solely on their emotions and not think logically, then they deserve the very things that they get. And like I've always said, you get what you give. Now, I can't speak for everybody in these protests, but you see, its majority of it is younger people. And any excuse, I remember when I was a kid, I mean, as much as no one would ever want a bomb threat or somebody, calling in and pulling the fire alarm or something like that, we as children used to love when it happened because we got out of class. So any chance to get out of class is always a beautiful thing, and it's the same thing today. Why wouldn't some of these students be leaving just for the fact of, oh, finals? Well, I can go do finals. I may not have studied, or I wasn't prepared, or I might not have been smart enough for it. I could just walk out of school and have no consequences. Sure, I'll join in. And you see so many of them that are spending more time filming this to make sure they get that perfect clip on YouTube than actually standing up for anything that they supposedly believe in. And then you have the people that are there for violence. And you see destruction of property, and you see the injury of other people just based on their belief. So if they truly stood for what they believed in, well, then what they're doing is very hypocritical. But what it's going to do is leave a scar on their side that is not going to heal, because physical will heal. The windows that are broken, they will be fixed. The cars that were damaged will be repaired. Hopefully the injuries that people have accrued will get better in time. But the emotional effect of what's happening is going to stay with us for a very long time. So just imagine 4 years from now, when either Trump is going for re-election or another person is going, the Democrats, we're going to have a very hard time preaching unity and love and togetherness when they are doing quite the opposite right now. And that is something that voters are not going to forget. And I mean, and I'll say it again. I mean, the hypocrisy of how many people said they were moving to Canada. I mean, it came to the point where the Canadian website of immigration shut down because it was overloaded with people. Now, when you think of Canada, what race do you think of? Majority of people that live in Canada? Do you think of Mexicans? Do you think of African Americans? Or do you think of Canada as pretty much a white country, majority-wise? And people say, oh, well, there's a French connection. Well, France is pretty much the same thing. So they talk about how, oh, I'm so tired of the United States and its corruption and its lack of unity and segregation and all this other stuff. So they all claim to want to move to one of the more whitest countries in the world. So think about that. They didn't say they're going to move to Venezuela or Mexico or China or Vietnam or to the Middle East. They wanted to move to a place that's probably one of the whiter places outside of Sweden in the entire world. And they wonder why we're upset with them. So my thing is, if these children want to base things on emotion instead of actually researching, especially instead of actually knowing what's going on, especially in their own political party. I mean, I've had people leave comments saying, oh, there was never one email of anything that Hillary did wrong. I'm like, really? And that is obviously a person that didn't check things. So from our perspective, we want these people to continue doing it. Now, obviously, we don't want them to be violent. So if they want to keep protesting and saying silly things based on the fact that they're hurt emotionally, well, this is going to leave a scar in their party, and they are actually causing damage. So they're there thinking they're doing the right thing. They're there thinking they're going to make change. They're there thinking they're going to change the rest of us, and all they're doing is hurting their own cause. Because there's an old saying that says, actions speak louder than words. And when you have a premise that was based on unity and harmony, and they do nothing but become violent, it sends the message. You know, it's almost like, for example, when you're a kid, if your father was to sit you down on his lap and tell you how bad smoking is while he's smoking a cigar, it sends the message. It's like, wait a minute, you're telling me how bad it is, and yet you're doing it. And people will lose respect. So to anybody in these protests, are you doing it because you truly believe in a cause? And if so, what is that cause? Other than just regurgitating what everybody else has said. Oh, it's because people on the Trump side are misogynist and homophobic and xenophobic and all these things. It's wonderful to say nice little taglines. But if you don't understand what they mean, and if you don't understand that generalization is not a good thing, because no one would like to be put in a generalization when it comes to things like that. I have said repeatedly that I don't think any candidate will help a system. But I did not ever deny that I was more for Trump than I would ever be for Clinton. Now, does that mean because I liked Trump in that way that it makes me a racist? And for the ridiculous comments that some people are making, just really shows what level we've been reduced to. And like I said in the previous video, it's not like racism or sexism or all these things were invented just this year. These things have been around throughout history. And we're always pointing fingers to everybody else instead of taking responsibility for our actions. So these protesters, you're not helping your cause. You're going to be seen as a joke. Most people that are not under the liberal media see you as children whining and complaining, who are acting like babies that didn't get what they wanted. They didn't get their way, and now they're stomping their feet. And that's fine. But if you're destroying the very communities that you live in, and you're hurting the very businesses that are probably just trying very hard to survive, what kind of message are you sending? Do you think any next Democratic Party that goes in and tries to either win the House or wins the Senate or tries for president, do you think they're going to point out those protesters and be on your side? Or do you think they're going to forget about you when the dust clears? Because it's not going to help their agenda. They don't associate with people like that. So they're going to use you because it brings publicity. Publicity brings them sales. So they're taking advantage of all these protesters, basing things on emotions. So all these elitist people are sending out all this stuff to make you angry, make you scared. So you can go out and advertise for them. But you're only hurting them, and you're only hurting yourself. So your parents who have spent all this money on your education, your quote-unquote education, are now paying thousands upon thousands of dollars for you to be in the streets not doing anything in school and not learning, which may be a blessing in disguise because you're not really taught anything important. You're taught propaganda, and you don't see it. And that's why so many people will go to college and spend tens of thousands of dollars and be in debt before they ever start, learn things like liberal arts, and then try and find the job to find that they're not there. This is not something new. So, my opinion, and my advice to people out there, especially if you're new here, is to stop basing things on emotion. It's not always easy. There are times I've been heated, and that's okay. It's part of life. But when you have the opportunity to stop and think and process, you have a better chance. And that's why, for example, when I talk about things like gold and silver, I talk about the future of what could potentially happen, that I have it as a protection, as insurance. And if I never need it, then you know what? At least I could turn around and sell some of that gold and silver, even if it ended up ultimately as a loss. I'd rather get some money back than if I would have wasted it on something. But it's my choice, and I planned it out, I thought it out, and I researched, and I found things that resonated with me, and I did what I thought was best. That's how you have no regrets. I'm sure that 10 years from now, maybe even less time, but 10 years at least, when these children grow up, they're going to look back at what they did, and they're going to regret their decision. Because they didn't think it out, and they let other people use them. The media is using you. So use this as a learning lesson for the future of television watching, television programming, listening to any politician. Whether you're on their side or not, don't let them use you. If you are hearing something or seeing something that makes you angry, that's on TV or from a politician, stop and think about what it is, research more about it, and then go from there. If you just automatically react, and that's why, for example, the video I made 2 days ago about the Obama law that ended up being something that came out in 2012, that's a simple mistake. Sometimes those things can happen, but I owned up to it, and I left it up there because I don't have a problem with the fact, and it proves a point that sometimes all of us can make a mistake. Sometimes we can be trusting and say, oh, this is what I saw, so it must be true. Sometimes people don't lie. Sometimes there's just mistakes. It's part of life. So I'm not going to make this video longer than this right now because I have a couple things I have to go do, but I wanted to at least bring this across to people that let them protest. Let them continue to make their side look silly. We can't take them seriously anymore. Before the election, they had some good points, but they're now doing the opposite of what they were preaching. That makes them hypocrites. And it should teach the rest of us to stop and think, process information, question things. And if you're basing things on something that made you mad or afraid, think about it because somebody is trying to make you do something for their own agenda. And we're not going to allow people to profit off of our ignorance any longer. At least I hope not. So as usual, the people who decide to come and watch my channel, whether it's live or whether it's days or weeks later, I always appreciate you. To all the people that come here constantly to leave your comments, I want to give a shout out to Domo777, Troy Stidard, the Pig Hater 101, love that name, Oliver Meyer, Michael X, Pyro Life's 9. Let me see if there's anybody else. Call me Zabi, or Zabby, forgive me if I get that wrong, and to any Martin M, and everybody else. I want to thank you all, and I hope you appreciate what I do. If you do, thumbs up always are appreciated. It helps support my channel, because you guys know my channel, they make it very hard for my information to get out. So anything you guys can do to help spread that is always appreciated. So thank you. So have a great night. Think for yourself. Don't let fear and rage control what you do. And don't forget to have your trolls spayed or neutered. Thank you very much. Have a great night.